All right, a concept that is closely related to electron configurations is photoelectron spectra or photoelectron spectroscopy. It's also known as PES. So what happens is an atom is taken and it is zapped with X-rays, and that causes the electrons to be lost. The energy level is able to be determined, the energy level that's required to remove each of these electrons. And we find that core electrons, they take more energy to remove. So we end up getting a printout really of the electron configuration. So here we have our PES, our photoelectron spectroscopy chart or diagram. And the big thing that you should notice about these is they are pretty long. And I find that on the AP test, they give you shorter ones. So they kind of scrunch it together. But the ones in your homework and other ones that you'd see other places, they can be quite long. And so oftentimes they stack them on top of each other. So the biggest thing to notice first in these charts is that where's the energy? Sometimes they count the energy backwards. So this one starts at 0, but sometimes they might start with a very, very large number. So you need to pay attention to the energy. So I know that I have low energy here, and then this chart, they cut it in half, and then they continued it. So I have high energy here. So when you first identify the high energy, the very first peak, and it may or may not have a number there, but the very first peak that's closest to the high energy, that's going to be your 1s peak. Okay. The height here tells you how many electrons that there are. So if this was a height of 2, so if they didn't label it, then I would say this is my 1s2 peak, and I have 2 electrons in that peak. So this is a core electron. Again, your 1s2 peak is always going to be your most energy to remove those 2 electrons because they are the closest to the nucleus, and because there's that strong proton-electron pull or attraction, those are going to be the hardest to remove because they're the closest. Your valence electrons are further away from the nucleus, and so they are going to not take as much energy to remove them. So we're going to look for which electrons come next as far as the highest electrons, and they are right here. So on the electron configuration, what comes after 1s2? Well, it's 2s2. And you should notice this is at the same height as the other one. So again, I have 2 electrons. So this one tells me I have 2 electrons, but sometimes you just have to read it from the graph. What comes after 2s2 as far as electron configuration? Well, the 2p's. So I need to look and see what is the height. And my height is double that of the 2s2. And so this is going to be 2p4. I only have 4 electrons. So what this is showing us that this is a core electron, and these right here, these are valence electrons. So we can see valence electrons don't take as much energy because they're further away from the nucleus, so the nuclear attraction is less. And what is this element? Well, 1s2, 2s2, 2p4, this is oxygen. So you can identify the element from the PES chart. Okay, let's do another one. So again, pay attention to the energy. So I have low energy here, and I have high energy here. So I know that the one closest to the higher energy, that is my 1s2 peak. And then I'm going to go to the next highest energy. So that would be over here, 2s2. And then over here I can read that this one is triple my 2 peak. You can always compare it to the first peak because the first peak is always going to be 2 electrons. So this one is triple, so I know I have 6 electrons, so 2p6. And then what comes after 2p6 is 3s2, and it does match the height of my other s peaks. And then I just have this little baby guy here. It's half of the s2, the 3s2, so I know I only have 1. So this is 3p1. And then I just look on my periodic table to what has a 3p1, and this would be aluminum. So here I have some real PES diagrams, and so they're a little bit different. again, go through and identify what has the highest energy, what is the lowest energy. And I see that this one they did backwards. So I have high energy here. The reason why they put high energy first is because then you can do your electron configuration in order. So the one closest to the high energy is 1s2, and I can tell that this is my two electrons. So I'm going to compare all the other peaks to this one because I know for sure that this one is 2 electrons. So this one's the same height. So this is 2s2. And then this one is triple. So this is my 2p6. And then this one, comparing the height. And can you see the electrons right here? How many there are? There's a little chart, even though that they didn't number it. This is telling me there's only 1 electron. So this is 3s1 is what comes next. So make sure you double check your periodic table and go in order. So 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s1, and this is sodium. So you can see your core electrons versus your valence electrons. So these guys are my core. And this one right here, this is my valence. So it doesn't require as much energy because it's not as close to the nucleus. And then let's look at this last one. Again, they did high energy here and low energy here. So make sure you pay attention to that. And then let's look at the heights. So I know that this height is 2 electrons. And it's my first peak, 1s2, because it's the closest to the energy. This one looks about the same height, so 2s2. This is more of a real printout here. And then this one does look to be about triple. So that would be 6 electrons, 2p6. And then this one is a little 2, so 3s2. And then this one, you just need to do a judgment call. You might say it's a 3, you might say it's a 4. So I'm going to say it is a 3, I think. 3p3, because it looks about half of that guy. So I'm going to say 3p3. So then we'll look on the periodic table and we get phosphorus. And if you thought it was a 4, you could probably argue that. But I'm going to say it's phosphorus because it looks about half that 6 peak. On the AP test and my test, it will be very clear. So your homework is more of just an approximation like this. And if you think it looks like the next one, you would be right. So again, on my test or the AP test, they would tell you like the heights right here. They'd say this is 6, this is 3. So they would give you some markings. And this one's lacking.